Welcome to Garden Wanderlust, where we step through the gates of Britain's most inspiring independent gardens. Join me, Josef Lloyd, and together we'll explore these hidden horticultural gems, meet the passionate people behind them, and uncover the stories that make these spaces so special. Today, I'm continuing my snowdrop journey with a visit to two truly unique gardens. My first stop takes me to the Wye Valley Sculpture Garden in South Wales, a picturesque 3-acre woodland haven nestled in the heart of the Wye Valley. Here I meet artist and gardener Gemma Kate Wood, whose deep-rooted connection to this landscape spans generations. On a very rainy morning, I joined Gemma for a wander amongst the sculptures set against the delicate beauty of the snowdrops, each one adding its own quiet charm to this ever-evolving garden. So here we are at the entrance to your garden, and you've got this lovely open barn. Is that how you would describe this?
It does get called a sculpture barn, but yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, it used to be my studio, my outdoor studio.
Ah,
so
right.
I have an indoor studio for clean, dry, cutting glass, painting, acrylic, that sort of work, and then I had the big open, barn space for what used to be a lot of chainsaw work, a lot of sawdust, a lot of power tools, a lot of metal work, plaster. But then after the pandemic, it became a functional space for being able to serve teas and coffees, and sometimes people run courses here. It's rustic, but actually that's what I've discovered people like.
It's very cute. You've got snowdrops in jars on the tables, and you've got your snowdrops for sale at the back there.
Certainly.
Should we go in? Because it's very wet outside.
Yeah, so yesterday this was full to the brim with people. I had my neighbour Tom, who runs the bottle shop over there, and he was selling his hot mulled cider here. We were selling freshly baked homemade cakes with teas and coffees here.
And how important is it to have a good piece of cake?
Amazingly, extremely important. For me, a beautiful piece of fresh cake made with beautiful ingredients served within hours of being made is a real key to a really beautiful day, and I think most people would agree with you.
Gemma and I then braved the weather and made our way up to the garden. There are pathways that just meander through, and it sort of shows all its glory with its different levels that you've obviously created over the years. But that kind of almost paints a picture in itself, doesn't it?
Your eyes are drawn towards the south, which is down the valley, and I have actually moved a couple of trees, so to keep that view. So you've got the layers of the valley unfolding within you, in front of you, and you can just see the old chapel on the hill.
Oh yes,
which some people suggest that Wordsworth wrote some of his lines there.
Well, if he didn't, he should have done.
Well, exactly.
That's all I
Well,
could
personally,
say.
He should have been sitting here.
He should.
Yeah. And then literally, the Tintern Abbey is literally over this first bump. And obviously it's quite grey today, but say some days, especially if the mist is lifted in the morning and it unfolds behind each one of those folds of the valley, and it's wow. And then say, apart from the ruin of the church, you can't see any houses there at all. You could be, lost in a jungle, really.
You really could. I could literally stand here for hours just drinking in the view.
And to be honest, some days when I just need a bit of downtime headspace, this is where I'll come and bring a cup of tea too. So this is the old apple orchard, and I would say that we have maybe 2/3 of this part snowdropped. And then in a couple of weeks' time we'll continue to snowdrop down through this section here. I'm quite keen to keep that as the native wild ones.
And it's a beautiful orchard. I mean, there's some very old trees here.
There are, and it's really lovely because the obviously the mistletoe's sort of taking hold, and then reluctantly these are wired at the moment, but I'm creating an avenue of Japanese cherry blossom, so that you walk up to this sculpture, and then between the cherry blossom I planted lots of different white narcissi daffodils. So you get this, hopefully you get this lovely end of April avenue of white blossom.
So we're now coming to the Snowdrop Wood walk. Well, what can I say? This looks phenomenal. What you've done. You've obviously created some pathways through the woodland.
In the last few weeks we've had how many storms blow through?
Oh gosh, quite a few.
So when you look at the sort of, if you look at things like Rococo and gardens and places like that, and you get this huge vista of snowdrops and it's absolutely pristine and you've got your standard trees, and of course that's what everybody wants to see, and it's visually extremely beautiful. You know, I have piles of sticks and I have piles of twigs, which then doesn't give you that vista, but what it gives you is reality. Now these are piles for beetles and bugs and everything else, and you know, I actually think people are starting to really understand and appreciate that. So even I've changed. Maybe I don't garden it and tidy it up quite as much as I once did, because you know, I'm looking through there and my artist's eye is going, oh my gosh, there's a stick down there, all that's out of place. But the part of me that's more probably connected to the planet is looking at it going, yay, it's nature.
And what you have done here is completely sympathetic to the landscape, and quite right that you should leave the piles. And to me, they look really attractive.
Oh, well,
I really like them.
And I think also this is the point that I'd like to say. I don't take the credit for all of this white in here. This is the beauty of my parents, who have had a 50-year-old marriage, who still love coming out and gardening together. And once the snowdrops are over, you'll see the two of them in here, spreading and planting the snowdrops and chatting away to each other, and it makes my heart melt.
You can see from here the differences in the snowdrops. There are some snowdrop gardens that have very, very dense swathes, and actually sometimes it isn't easy to establish which is which variety, as it were. But here you can.
Sometimes I think, perhaps we should have been a bit more formal. But you know, when you're building up a collection, you don't necessarily have the luxury of having 1,000 spare bulbs or this and that and the other. So this little path here, we've got 10 different labels or so. So you know, we've got Primrose Warburg, we've got Comet, we've got Sherlockii, we've got Monosticus, we've got Augustus, we've got what have we got? George Elwys, we've got Dionysus, we've got Angelique. I know I've got Anglesey Abbey over there. I've got Augustus is there, Magnet's there, Merlin's there, Trim is there. You know, I mean, I say we're not in the league of the true galanthophiles, because I don't have a list of hundreds and hundreds of snowdrops, which I know some nurseries do. But I hope, as we said earlier, we're on the edge. So I thought we meet that bit between people wanting to just be out in nature, see the carpets of them, see the hellebores, appreciate them, and create a small collection. And yeah, I have got a lot of galanthophiles who do come just because it's different and we're here and we're part of the snowdrop circuit.
I guess the true reason for people to come here is to get out and enjoy the sights that, you know, they can see the first flowers of the season.
And you know what? I think for me, that's one of the key things I do this for. It's like people have all gone through this sort of trauma of Christmas. And then, you know, obviously February's not exactly yielding those lovely sunny days for me at the moment. But, you know, a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon and the garden full of snowdrops. Oh my God, people are smiling from ear to ear. People are meeting their friends or bumping into their friends. And there's just this amazing community of this buzz, literally a buzz, a human buzz going on.
Gemma then introduced me to some of her magnificent sculptures.
Is this the most talked about piece?
No, it's probably one of my fondest pieces, and I know people really respond to it. So I say, yes, it's a stack of 3 soft, not perfectly symmetrical triangles, I hasten to add,
Right.
and they are rusted, so they've got a really stable surface of core 10 rust, which means that they won't do any more rusting. That they're going to last forever.
I understand that it kind of creates a protective layer almost by rusting.
It's incredible, and people often looking, oh, your sculptures are rusty, and I'm going, well, yes, they are, because I actually love rust.
Yes.
And then in contrast, I've got this patterned brushed stainless steel on the faces of them. Now that is just, first of all, the patterns for me are all about the patterns of nature. One of the things that I find very pleasing is when you take the bark off an ash tree and it's had the beetles in there.
Oh, yes.
I just find that magical. I find that when like the ferns, and you see all the little what's the word? Fronds, yes, and and all the marks that you find upon the ferns and the little seed heads and stuff, absolutely beautiful. I just always looking at patterns of nature, and this is kind of what for me, how the way my sculptures work. It's about making really formal, tight shapes that live in a very naturalistic world, but they hold their own. They've got a tightness to them. And then this one is I just adore it. In the sun on the other day, so I was out doing some yoga here in the circle, and the sun just bounces off the stainless steel, and I just love it.
How long would it take you to actually make something like that?
Well, actually, in truth, what took longer is to make the computer program read the metal work, the artwork, to do the laser cutting.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, yeah. Okay. Right, so you do a laser cut.
I do now. I use modern technology.
What? Get you!
Yes, you could cut that out by hand. You'd be hard pushed not to get scorch marks on it, and you'd be there all day long.
This sculpture here is inspired quite obviously by snowdrops.
Certainly is, and sold within 5 hours of being in the garden.
Oh, congratulations on that one. And I'm not surprised. It is
this
lovely.
is from my friends and guest artists here. That's also her work there. And yes, she'd been making that. I knew she was making that one, so yeah, I was delighted to sell it straight away. And I'm delighted it's going to a lady. I think she's got a 60th birthday, and she just looked at it and went, "Yes, that's my present."
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Can she make you another one though?
Well, obviously they are unique and not quite the same, but I'm hoping so.
Excellent. Are there many sculpture gardens?
Right here on my doorstep, no, there are not. And in terms of sort of certainly South Wales, somebody will correct me, but I think I might be the only sculpture garden. And I really want to become an advocate and an ambassador for art sales in Wales.
The rain eased off a little, but the wind picked up as it was time to sadly leave Gemma's wonderful sculpture garden, and I made my way to the next stop, Painswick Rococo Garden, one of the Cotswolds' best-kept secrets. When I arrived, I met up with volunteer Sue Steed. With the weather still unsettled, we started our tour in the Eagle House, which overlooks the garden. Some say eagles once lived there, but more likely it's named for its eagle-eye view over the beautiful garden. I got straight to the point, asking Sue the most obvious question.
What does Rococo Garden actually mean?
Well, Rococo is just a style, so it was architecture, it was furniture, it was meant to be very elaborate, and you'll find in a lot of Rococo furniture, there's lots of C shapes or S shapes within it, so it's meant to not be very formal. So this period was quite a short period, from sort of 1740s to 1770s, and they're a bit smaller in scale than those big capability brown gardens. So this is about 12 acres.
It is, and we're standing very, very high up now, looking down the valley into the garden, because it is built in a valley, isn't it? It's kind of created in a valley. And as you mentioned capability brown. I mean, no, this isn't like that at all.
No.
I mean, it doesn't borrow the landscape to kind of create a sort of larger estate and, you know, planted areas outside of the garden. It's very much contained.
Yes. Well, the house was built in about 1738, and the gardens were then designed by Thomas Robbins and Benjamin Hyatt, who was the brother of the original owner. And then it was kept as it is, more or less as it is now, for that period of time. It then, obviously, after the war, Lord and Lady Dickinson took it over in the mid-50s, 1950s, and they, in about 10 years later, they turned it into a commercial conifer farm.
Right.
So
I'm just trying to imagine
it
that.
was completely different, and we've got some lovely photographs of what that was like. And then in the mid-80s, they were inspired by the original painting of Thomas Robbins to restore the gardens back to what it originally was, and that's when the charity was set up. And ever since then, we've been restoring it back to its natural glory.
So the garden is obviously, it's an independent garden, but it's run by a trust,
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so all of the, you know, the building that we're standing in now, from the outside looks like brick, but it's lime plaster. So obviously we have to keep renewing the way it's painted on the outside, and we're using traditional materials to keep the essence of the garden as traditional as we can.
Which is obviously a costly thing.
A costly thing.
Yeah.
Which is why we have so many amazing visitors to the gardens.
And amazing volunteers, because you are a volunteer here.
I am, yes. I've been here for about a couple of years, and I literally came with my dog and a friend of mine with his dog, and we, in the snowdrop season actually, and we were sat having a cup of coffee and a slice of cake, as you do after a walk around the gardens, and a lady walked past and I said, do you ever need volunteers? And my friend said, what are you thinking? I said, I didn't know where that came from. I just thought, what a lovely place. Wouldn't this be a lovely place to be a volunteer? And it's amazing. It's a lovely office.
We then braved the weather and wandered along the steep bank of snowdrops that cascade down toward the orchard. From there, Sue led me to a tiny building tucked away in the far corner of the garden.
Well, we're coming up to, how would I, this is absolutely gorgeous.
This is I think the most romantic part of the garden. This is the red house, and it's typical of Rococo because it's asymmetrical, and it symbolises the wealth of the Hyatt family, because the finials on the top are pineapples, and pineapples obviously in the 1740s were a very, very exotic fruit and would have cost a fortune. So it's one of those symbols of wealth, and it shows how wealthy.
And that's why when you go to some of these big houses, like on the driveways and things, on the pillars, you see these big pineapples.
Yes, yes. And there's some lovely Latin inscriptions on the glass, and inside the red house there is the crest of the original Hyatt family. I think it's very special. I think it looks very pretty, it looks very romantic.
Well, should we go in?
Yes, let's do.
Right, so we're going inside now. Gosh, this is absolutely gorgeous.
It's so tiny, but the architecture is just beautiful, and it's so sweet. So it's two chambers, two very small rooms, and the second room is the one that has the crest of the Hyatt family in it.
Should we go and have a look? Oh, there it is. It's actually embossed in the plasterwork.
Yes, yeah. And you can see how tiny the little fireplace was. And then this is the beautiful Latin inscription.
Stained glass, it's even on a grey day like today, it's just cheering up the room.
It is. It's stunning in the sort of bronze and various different shades of yellow and green.
It highlights the playfulness.
Yes, yeah.
Of the garden.
Yeah, lots of playfulness. And of course, as you go down into the valley, that's where they would have had lots of different they had plays and they would have been dancing. So and we still do that now. We do Shakespeare on the lawn, we do opera on the lawn. So we try to keep the spirit of what the gardens was all about in those days, but in today's society.
We then made our way along the twisting pathways as Sue introduced me to the follies and features of this magical landscape.
People think of this era as being very straight lines in paths, very formal. So again, this is quite unusual, and you've got the beautiful snowdrops and the hellebores on both sides. Just sort of punctuating the landscape.
But here we're now looking back at the Eagle House where we started, and you can see that steep bank full of snowdrops.
Yeah, the bank of snowdrops, it's really pretty. And we haven't even got to Snowdrop Grove yet.
We've come at the windiest, wettest time to the most exposed part of the garden. Now we're standing at probably the most, I would say, iconic structure in the garden.
Yes, so this is called the Excedra. As I say, it's a semicircular white folly.
It's a focal point, really.
It's a focal point, yes.
Because it's right sort of in the middle of the valley, as it were.
Yes.
So you'll look at every point, you would see this structure.
Yes. And in the Roman and Greek times, they would often be accompanied with a seat. But when we looked at the original paintings of Thomas Robbins, that wasn't featured here, so we didn't do that.
Right. And you've got this circular pond.
Circular pond here, and then there's another one down at the bottom where the vegetable garden is.
I see. So they had obviously planned to have these sort of similar ponds as you sort of made your way around the garden.
Called the Doric seat, which was it was originally in a different part of the garden, called the Pigeon House, which is obviously, we think, where they kept pigeons, maybe for pigeon pie or something like that back in the day. And in the 1800s, the original owners of the house, one weekend every year, they allowed all of the villagers from Painswick to come and pick 6 snowdrops each every year.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I know, it's really sweet. We've got some lovely little cards in the shop that depict them in their traditional dress, picking the little snowdrops to take back to their own homes.
But you don't do that now?
No, we don't do that now. But we do have a beautiful plant nursery that sells all the snowdrops and the hellebores and everything else. But we don't do that now.
No. I bet that was wonderful.
Oh,
though. What a lovely thing to do.
I know, it's really sweet.
Well, we'll
really
have to
sweet.
go and have a look at the picture of that. Yeah, when we get back round to the gift shop. Shall we risk it?
Yes, I think it's
Let's go. Which way are we going? Down this way?
Sue then took me to a rather unique feature of the garden, the original plunge pool.
So we think cold water swimming is something that's new to us all at the moment, with all these people going cold water swimming. But you can see at the back the water coming through down from the hills, and that is at a constant temperature of 12 degrees, little steps going down. So the men would have been sitting there. There would have been originally a little changing area at the side, and they would sit in the cold water because they realised the benefits to their health even in the 1700s.
Oh my word, yes, it just literally looks like a pond. And now you've mentioned that the steps go down, I can see where they are, and obviously there's a little is it a fish with some water coming out, like a stone fish at the back here, or some kind of sea creature almost.
Yeah, some sort of sea creature, and that's the natural water that flows and feeds the plunge pool. And again, you get that lovely view up to the Eagle House, where probably the ladies of the time were having their afternoon tea, and the men were sitting in the plunge pool.
So this would be where the men came,
yes,
and sat but not the women.
Yes,
no, that would have been too uncouth.
I think so at that time. But
You would have thought that we had invented plunge pools and wild swimming and all of
Yes,
that. But of
no.
course, you know.
I haven't tried it out.
I was going to
have
say, should we go in? We might give it a miss, actually.
Actually-
We might give it a miss on a day like today.
So this is what we call the tunnel arbour. It's very sparse at the moment because obviously it's not in leaf, but this is hornbeam. And again, it's a way to separate the more formal part of the garden from the woodland that goes beneath. We could see it on the original paintings, but obviously we've had to put that in, and it takes an awful long time to grow and shape into that.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah.
you saw it in the painting, but it
Yeah.
wasn't here.
Yeah, because of course this was been turned into this conifer farm, so all of this was completely overgrown. Everything had to be
So
started.
you've reinstated
Yes.
a replica or an imagined version of what you saw
Yes.
on the painting, or whoever back
Yes.
in the 80s. Would it
Yes,
be?
Lord and Lady Dickinson. who,
Yeah.
went back to the Thomas Robbins' original painting.
Should we walk through it?
Oh yes, because you've got one of my favourite viewpoints at the end of this.
This
So
is-
it's just so pretty in the summer as well, and at Christmas time when it's got all the lights on it and things, it's a really sweet little part of the garden, I think.
Oh, it is. I can just imagine it with all the twinkly lights. And it's very dense as well, isn't it?
Yes.
I can imagine in leaf,
Oh,
very
it's gorgeous.
magical.
So this is one of my favourite viewpoints in the whole garden, because look one way and you can see right back up to the top of the garden where the red romantic house is that we were in earlier, and if you look the opposite way you see right down the valley and you get the full length, I think, of the gardens. And
You
it's
are
just
absolutely
stunning.
I can see why this is your favourite spot.
And this is Snowdrop Grove, where it's in a wooded area and it's just carpets and blankets of snowdrops everywhere.
Oh, it's just magical. Oh my gosh, I've just seen a little carving of a fairy house.
Yes.
Should we make our way down there?
Oh, the
Lovely.
children love to find this because it's I don't know how old the tree is, but yes, we've had a carving done of a little romantic castle carved into the top of the tree. So the children love to come and find this. And when we have different features in here over Easter time or the summertime, we have wicker unicorns and fairies and things dotted in the woods for the children to find, and it's just lovely.
And what a great use of a tree that would have otherwise been taken down, or
I think it's that whole, we don't want any waste, and it's anything that we've got wood we turn into charcoal that we sell then in the shop again. So it's the whole thing is that we just want to keep everything and use everything as sustainably as possible.
is it the only Rococo garden?
It's the only fully restored Rococo gardens left in the country. So there are others which have got parts of it left, but we believe it's the only fully restored Rococo gardens left in the country.
Really are unique.
Unique, yes, yeah, it's
Yeah.
lovely. It's been a pleasure to show you around because when you love something, it's always really nice to share it with somebody else, isn't
Well,
it?
the pleasure is all mine.
Oh, bless you, bless you.
Today, I discovered the sensational sculpture garden nestled in the Wye Valley that was once the inspirational backdrop to Wordsworth's prose. And I had the privilege of visiting a magical garden like no other, where pathways wind their way amongst the romantic follies and fairy castles, the only fully restored Rococo garden in the country. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a review. It really helps more people discover the show. And if you'd like to support us, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com. All links are in the episode notes, including details on today's gardens and how you can visit them. Until next time, keep on wandering.
That's what they would be doing.
It's very Mr. Darcy, isn't it?
Oh, very Mr. Darcy, yes. Yes, the fit of the vapours.
Oh yes. Oof.
Frolicking.
Gentlemen with their shirts off,
Gosh.
dipping in the pool.